Hi. Welcome to On Politics, your guide to the day in national politics. I'm Nick Corasaniti, filling in on a Wednesday while Lisa Lerer is off.
Sign up here to get On Politics in your inbox every weekday.
Every decision that could change who gets to vote in Wisconsin, one of the swingiest of swing states, carries outsized weight. President Trump captured Wisconsin by less than 23,000 votes in 2016, the kind of razor-thin margin that could easily be repeated this November.
This week, the fate of Wisconsin voters whipsawed again in two critical court decisions, one celebrated by Democrats and the other by Republicans.
The development that elated Democrats concerned a hotly contested issue that had animated voters in the state's mid-pandemic election in April, an effort to purge from the voter rolls more than 100,000 people with potentially out-of-date registration data just months before November's election.
After months of legal wrangling, the decision over whether to go ahead with the purge rested with the Wisconsin Supreme Court, which leans conservative. The plaintiffs pushing for the purge argued that the case should be fast-tracked and heard outside the court's normal schedule.
But the court rejected their plea in a 5-2 decision late Tuesday night, instead deciding to hear oral arguments in late September, making it highly unlikely the court will be able to rule on the case before Election Day in November.
A conservative-leaning justice, Rebecca Bradley, wrote in a dissenting opinion that a ruling will now most likely not be made until 2021.
The people of Wisconsin would most likely not receive a decision in this case until after every single one of Wisconsin's 2020 elections has come and gone, including the presidential election in November, and nearly an entire year after petitioners' commencement of this time-sensitive appellate litigation, Justice Bradley wrote.
The voter purge effort initially targeted more than 230,000 names, but as voters responded and updated their information, the list has since dropped to about 130,000.
Wisconsin election rules state that any change to the voter rolls must occur 30 days before Election Day, so the time frame to purge the names after any court decision in the fall would be nearly impossible. Additionally, Jill Karofsky, the Democratic-backed candidate who won the statewide Supreme Court race in April, takes her seat in August, shifting the makeup of the court.
Democrats in the state celebrated the decision.
The Wisconsin Supreme Court's decision to not consider purging hundreds of thousands of Wisconsinites from the voter rolls is nothing more than them upholding our democracy, said Philip Schulman, a spokesman for the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. As we move closer to the November election in the midst of a pandemic, they should remember what they've proven they know, that voting is a fundamental right.
Officials from the state Republican Party did not return requests for comment.
But as Democrats and voting rights advocates celebrated the scheduling fortune from the Wisconsin court, they were also reeling from a decision handed down Monday by a federal appeals court on multiple voting laws and regulations that had been pending for years.
The court, a panel of 3 judges appointed by Republican presidents, ruled that the early voting period in Wisconsin would be no more than 2 weeks, rather than the 6 weeks that polls were open before Election Day in 2016. It also said that absentee ballots must be mailed, not emailed or faxed, to voters, and that voters must have lived in their current residence for 28 days, rather than the previous 10-day deadline.
State Republicans, who had pushed for the restrictions, welcomed the decision.
It wasn't about voters' rights advocacy, Mark Jefferson, the executive director of the Republican Party of Wisconsin, wrote on Twitter. It was about Dems trying to tilt the field in their favor.
The appeals court did provide some flexibility on the state's voter identification requirements, ruling that expired student IDs are permissible at the polls, and that people without an ID who can produce an affidavit saying that they tried to procure one can also vote.
The decisions are the latest in a years-long battle over voting rights and voter access in Wisconsin. And there are likely more fights to come, particularly as the coronavirus pandemic continues to disrupt the voting process.
Wisconsin was, after all, the state where lines of mask-clad voters wrapped around blocks for hours in April. No one wants to see that again.
Drop us a line.
We want to hear from our readers. Have a question? We'll try to answer it. Have a comment? We're all ears. Email us at onpolitics@nytimes.com.
Many of you wrote in to respond to Jennifer Medina's Monday newsletter about the calls for Joe Biden to pick a woman of color as his running mate. You had lots of thoughts about Mr. Biden's choices. Need a refresher? Here's a guide to 13 women under consideration.
A brief selection of your responses.
Chuck Richards, Seattle.
Jan Galkowski, Westwood, Mass.
Stephanie Song, Bergen County, New Jersey.
Sheila Goldberg, Venice, California.
Lillian Brahms, New York City.
Denny Hamlin, Ridgeway, Colo.
Thanks for reading. On Politics is your guide to the political news cycle, delivering clarity from the chaos.
On Politics is also available as a newsletter. Sign up here to get it delivered to your inbox.
Is there anything you think we're missing? Anything you want to see more of? We'd love to hear from you. Email us at onpolitics@nytimes.com.